Now just hold on. Let's freeze this frame for a moment because I think this guy wants to introduce himself and tell you what today's video is all about. But the idiot forgot to turn on the sound, so I'm going to have to do it for him. His name is Bill. He has a YouTube channel called This Old RV. He's old. His RV is old. It's a 1997 Beaver Class A diesel pusher, and it's badly in need of interior remodeling. So today, he's going to show us what he's doing to update the interior wall coverings, beginning with taking everything off the walls that's in the way. So let's see what he's going to do. To show you how well Beaver built their coaches in terms of the finishing of it. Look at this. This is the original Valence. This is 27 years old. It's really quite nicely done. And look at the wood that they've used. It looks like it's a finished grade plywood, whether maybe birch plywood or whatever, but that's half inch wood, and then neatly stapled. Just really impressed. Okay, now onto the prep work. I'm using a scraper because this is really an invaluable tool. It's razor sharp. I took a file to it, really sharp. And I find that if you just run this over your hard surface and take away any areas where the wallpaper effect that they've kind of laminated onto the finish when they built these things, if it's rippled or coming apart of it, you just want to scrape off all the loose stuff. You don't want to be applying wallpaper over anything that's loose. So this just scrapes everything clean, and then I'm going to patch a few holes, and then we're going to wipe it down. Okay, but have a scraper handy. A cheap little thing, really good tool. Now in this section, I'm going to be wallpapering right down to the hard surface counter, but the backsplash is going to cover it, so I don't want to be too fussy, but I just don't want this loose material being left behind. And again, in this area, just taking off any rough edges. Especially around the windows, where there's often a bit of a buckling of the old surface. And you want your wallpaper to be cut nice and neat around this edge. I'm going to be filling in a lot of these holes. And, you could wallpaper right over them, but I don't like to do that. Let's do a complete job here, kids. I'm not going to be too fussy with this upper area because the valence is going to cover that. I'm not even going to wallpaper there. I've got these small holes taped off. I know it looks like overkill. All I'm doing is isolating the holes so I don't smear my filler all over the place. But if you don't want holes anymore, I just like to fill them with epoxy just to tighten things up. And even though it's going to be covered over with wallpaper, I guess I'm just a fussy old fart. I'll show you what I'm using to fill those holes. I'm using a two-part epoxy, very inexpensive stuff to buy at any hardware store. This is Permatex. One of the tubes is a hardener and one is the resin. The resin is white and the hardener is black. And you just mix them together. It's just 1-to-1. And it just forms a really tight bond in these holes. You know, if you use something that's, well, you could use anything actually because wallpaper is going over it, but I just like using this stuff. So let's just get on with it. Now this stuff doesn't sand very well, so you want to make sure that when you put it into the holes, it's nice and flush so that you don't have to do anything to it. There's all sorts of brands of epoxy, easy to find. You really should wear gloves with epoxy. I'm not a good example. And then remove the tape fairly quickly. I know it seems like a lot of work for just a tiny little hole. Okay, now that we've done step 1, we're on to step 2, which is the washing down of the surfaces. Remember, yesterday what I did was I just took everything off the walls. Any kind of fittings around the electrical plugs, just unscrewed things. I took a scraper and scraped away any loose wallpaper, just cleaned things up a bit. Took the window valances down. And I've pulled our nasty looking couch away from the wall. And now I can get down around the furnace area. Easy to wallpaper when the wall's like this. And over on the far right, I just made sure that all the holes that we don't want anymore, even though they're going to be covered up by wallpaper, were sealed with epoxy. Just a two-part epoxy. And then I just took a scraper and scraped them clean. Actually, let's have a walk over here and I'll show you. So I want to keep these holes and these two holes, but these other holes are unnecessary, and I just feel better when they're sealed up before you wallpaper. Rather than just putting sealant in, if you put this epoxy filler in, it's just really smooth and it's a hard bind in there. Okay, so now what we're going to do, coming back, I'm going to use this simple green surface prep stuff to just wash down the walls. It's a really simple solution to use. It's really important to make sure your wallpaper, or the part that you're going over with your wallpaper, is completely clean. After 27 years of grime on there, this stuff is really good at taking stuff off. And you put it on full strength with a damp cloth. You wipe it clean with a fresh clean cloth, and Bob's your uncle. Then you're ready to wallpaper. Oh, sorry, no, you can't wallpaper right away. We then apply the primer coat to that surface, and then we'll wallpaper. We're still a few steps off. Remember, my work is slow. Now come on, at 73, this is not so easy anymore. I'm having to tape underneath the cabinets. I'm taping off so I don't have to be so careful with the primer that I'm going to apply next. It takes a while to tape. I kind of find it satisfying. And it takes actually more time to tape than it does to paint. But then you can just take the tape off and you have a nice clean edge. It's really worth it. It's worth taking the time. You know, something to consider. If you're considering painting versus wallpapering, painting's a lot easier because if I were going to be painting this surface, I'd be ready to paint right after this taping. And I could leave the tape on until I was finished my several coats and it's finished. With wallpapering, I still have to do the taping, but then I have to wallpaper, and that's kind of fussy work. And then once I've wallpapered, I have to apply 2 coats of paint on it. So it's kind of a double whammy when you wallpaper. So make sure you truly want to wallpaper because you're going to be longer at it, like I am. Okay, I'm now finished the taping. So that took about an hour. That's not too long in the overall scheme of things. Let's just take a look at where I've stopped. Over here, I'm going to carry the wallpaper just to this edge. And when I get down alongside the control panel, I'm actually going to do something different there. I'm going to insert a nice piece of veneer, maple veneer, like we have on the steps and so on, so it matches. It'll just be a nice clean look of veneer that will come out to the edge here. So I'm not going to worry about painting in there or wallpapering. It's just too difficult. And the veneer will look much better. Hi again. Okay, we're on to the painting stage of the primer. I've got a big gallon here of it's a generic primer. Hold that up for you. See it? It's a interior latex paint primer. It's pretty thick, and that's what you want. You want to have a really good primer base for the adhesive on the wallpaper to grab onto. When I did this 2 years ago in the other section of Monty, I can't recall if I used 1 or 2 coats. We'll see what it looks like after 1 coat. I'm sure you don't want to sit here and watch me paint for an hour or so. So how about you come back? I've got a brush here somewhere. Hang on. I'm going to use this brush to just cut in, and then I've got a small roller, and we'll roll the rest, and then we'll take a break and see what it looks like. When you're cutting in around areas like this, you want to make sure that you get really good coverage right to the edge, because there's nothing more frustrating than applying wallpaper and then finding that lift in the corners. You know how often you'll see it around a seam, or it's just a place where it didn't grip very well. The adhesive didn't grip very well because the underlying surface was either dirty or whatever. But if you can get the primer right to that edge, and it means that it's going to be a really nice, tight, glued, you know what I mean. Okay, so I've cut in. Now I'm going to roll the rest. That it should go pretty quickly. I just bought a cheap little $6.99 dollar tray with a microfiber roller. I like the microfiber roller for this kind of thing a little better than the foam rollers because I want to apply quite thick, and this will do that. So how about we'll roll this and then call it a night. Okay, the rolling is finished. That didn't take long at all. You know, I think I'm going to just go with 1 coat. It went on nice and thick. I don't think anything's to be gained by putting another application on. It's just going to prolong the project. I tend to overdo things and make projects much longer than they need to be. So I think tomorrow we'll just start the wallpapering, and we'll just get on with it. Good morning, folks. Another day. Well, today we're going to apply the wallpaper. This is step 2 or 3. I've lost track of the steps. Let's not worry about that. Now, you can see that I've taped everything off, and we painted the primer yesterday. It's nice and dry, ready for the wallpaper. I'm going to remove the blue tape. And you may wonder why I'm doing that now, because I am going to have to paint the wallpaper afterwards. So why not leave the tape on? I find that if you leave the tape on when you're trying to get a nice cut edge along here with the wallpaper, if the tape's there, it gets in the way and you don't get a nice clean line. So I'm just going to pull that off and then we'll start applying the wallpaper. Okay, I'm going to start applying the wallpaper. I'm going to start on this edge because this is where I finished off 2 years ago. I left this edge just loose, and you can see the difference between the two surfaces. Now, some of you are going to say, what in the heck are you doing wallpapering a galley, a kitchen? You're going to get splatters here and everything, and that's true. It may not work out. Life is okay. If it doesn't work, we'll tile it. But I believe it's going to work because we did it in the bathroom. It's lasted 2 years in the bathroom. No pulling away from the wall. And we've splattered all sorts of things on there. Toothpaste and other things in the bathroom. And it hasn't soiled at all. Because remember, after we apply the wallpaper, we're painting 2 coats of a semi-gloss enamel, which really hardens the surface. So that's why we're doing it. I know. A little crazy. Michaela wanted me to do this. So to begin with, because this has been like this for 2 years, I can't rely on it's a pre-glued wallpaper. I can't rely on this to be any good after 2 years. So I've bought some adhesive, wallpaper adhesive paste. What is it called? Wall covering adhesive. And I've got this just as a standby areas like this, or other areas where I'm worried that it's not going to stick too well. And all you do is, I'm just going to apply this glue with this brush in here and stick this one down and then use this as my starting point. And I'm going to bring the wallpaper down to this line because I want to have some solid surface here when I glue the back on, you know, the whatever you call those things, the backsplash. When I put that against this, I don't want it to be sticking to the wallpaper. It's not the best seal. I'd rather have it glued here, just with some sealant. And you can see how high it will come up. The wallpaper I'm using is just a Home Depot special. Nothing really expensive. We've had this in storage for a couple of years now. I'm just praying that the glue is going to hold. I think it should be fine. In case you're doubting me about the durability of this stuff in the bathroom, let's go take a peek in the bathroom and I'll show you how it stood up over 2 years. Okay, we're in the bathroom now. I'm shutting the door. I'm sorry for the echo chamber sound. There's a really large machine outside. So this is one panel that I did 2 years ago. You can see the texture. You can see how well it's adhered to the wall, even though it's in a fairly moist area. So it stood up really well. And this has 2 coats of semi-gloss, which is what I'm going to do in the kitchen. And just panning around. You can see that it stood up quite well. I need to put a corner piece in that corner behind the faucet, so that's next on my list. But you can see even where I wrapped around the corners, it's still adhering really well. And again, that has the hard finish on it. So I just want to carry that along into the galley area, and we'll stop at the edge of the kitchen counter. And then from there on, we'll just do a satin finish on the wallpaper surface. Okay, let's get going. Now, I'm sure you don't want to sit here and watch me paste every sheet up. You'll go nuts. So I just want to show you the process I'm using, and then how about come back when I've basically got it done. So it's a self-pasting wallpaper. And you just pull it through this tray of water. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch this. But you just pull it through, allowing it, get saturated for about 30 seconds. And then you let it sit for 5 minutes so the glue can start to activate. So you can go have a cup of tea, a beer, do whatever you want to do, watch TV. So just fold that back on itself, glue to the glue, and we'll let that sit for 5 minutes. Now you can see this seam, and there's a seam here. I think it's best in cases like this not to roll the paper over top of this seam or this seam. I'm going to make sure that the one paper ends right here, and then I'll put a separate piece in here and make sure that there's a nice slice down here. Oh dear, my timer's ready. Okay, so because if you start to bend the paper through here and there's a little bit of shifting of these panels, you're gonna get, it doesn't look very good. It looks pretty sloppy. You probably get a little bit of an air pocket in there. No good. Just want to leave a bit at the top to trim with a knife. And the trick with this wallpaper, I have a really thin, very sharp knife, and it makes it very easy. So I'm just going to trim along here using this knife. I should have a long ruler that I can use, but I'll just use this a putty knife, and we'll see how it turns out. Well, I'm back. Good morning, fellow travelers. I don't know what day this is. I'm just carrying on. So I've wallpapered the galley section unpainted, but at least it's on the wall. And today, sunshine pouring in, and I'm just starting to work my way around this window. So what I find easiest is just to not dry fit it completely, but just shape it so that it's, or cut it to a shape where it's at least manageable, and then I can trim it once I get it onto the wall. Oh, my 5-minute timer's up. That means my wallpaper's ready to apply. Now look, I am not a home decorator. I am not a pro at wallpapering. I'm okay at painting, but I know some of you are probably aghast at how I'm doing this wallpapering. There's probably much easier and better techniques. Please don't be too hard on me. I'm just trying to get it up, and once it's painted, it'll look fine. All right. So I've got to get this long piece up. This is about 67 inches long, and for this wall. So come back to me in a few minutes. I got to get this up without tearing it. Oh. What I'm trying to avoid with this section is not to have any overlap with the seams. So you just want that to be a perfect butt. And then once I get everything tight, then it should just be fine. Then I can start trimming it. But it's just this, if I can line this up perfectly, then the rest just really falls into place. And I'm just tucking it in so I can trim. Doesn't take long for the glue to set. At least so it's it's more manageable to cut. I probably spend as much time on this one panel that most of you would spend on doing this whole wall. My work is sure slow. Okay, I just finished trimming that panel. Let's look at it. you can see the difference between what I finished last night, which was this section, and this section. This is much grayer. This is white. It dries to quite a white finish. I just wanted to add, with this being paintable wallpaper, it's really important to paint it afterwards. Some of you may say, well, that looks just fine. Why would I paint that? If you don't, it's really susceptible to tears. It's so fragile, really, because even dragging your fingernail along the surface could tear it. So it's really important to paint it. Well, it's nightfall. We're losing our light. I finally finished this side of the coach. Let's just take a quick look at it before we call it a night. I still need to put the valance back above the window once we've painted it. Good morning. Well, I didn't get it all done. I did get the wallpaper applied to the walls. That's one thing, but I didn't get it painted. Can we leave that till next week? I really want to go home now. I've been mooch docking on my friend's farm for a week. I don't want to overstay my welcome. And for those of you who have been following our channel, you probably know that we live in suburbia. We don't have any room for Monty at our place. So when we're off season and we're at home, we keep Monty stored in a friend's barn. When I want to work on it, I come up here to Nanoose Bay, which is sort of north of Nanaimo, which is almost mid-island, Vancouver Island, and I plug into my friend's house. It's wonderful. I sit in the middle of a horse pasture and I get lots of work done, sometimes. But as I say, it's time to go. So we're going to head home. It's going to take me about 4 hours. So right now I'm just going to fire up Monty. I'm going to go out onto the main street here and I'm going to hook up Lola. Well, the main street is a loop. It's called, it's all farms out here. People, every place has horses. And it's a safe place to hook up. And then we'll head south. So right now, let's fire up Monty and get out onto the street.